Hmm. We're not getting an intro. These angles, though. Oh, yes. That looks beautiful. Oh, it's the guy. Mmm. Interesting way to show past events there. It is technically a slideshow, but I think it was done pretty well. the way this, the way it's being cut, some of the direction, this camera angle, there's a style to this episode. Even the facial expressions. I wonder who's actually involved in directing this episode because feel I feel there's a difference, like an obvious one. Hmm. Look at the way they animated his head there. Hmm. Hey, hey, hey. It reminds me of Studio Trigger. This style of directing. It's kind of Imaishi-esque in a way. Hmm. Oh, we do not want that. He's Is he doing his tricks again? The way the camera pans to his chest. Hey, oh. This feels very triggery. Who is directing this episode? This is giving me Kill la Kill vibes. Who is directing this episode? I'll search it up once. Backstory? Same spot as well. Hmm. Hmm. It will be great to see like how some of the other characters that we met along the way have been right now. These shots, man. Ooh. Definitely the most distinct episode. Oh man, these angles. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some like really heavy foreshortening in this episode. Oh. Whoa! I just noticed the the shift in art style again. We saw that just like a couple of shots ago. I thought it was just a normal spider. This episode. So she takes the water. She's gonna spit it on him. Freeze him, perhaps? Love the sound design on that. Mystify it, okay. Oh, no, crystallize it. Cool. Mmm. Oh. Ah. The monster is probably them, right? Hope is fleeting. Oh, Tuichi. Ah. Oh. As I was saying, hope is fleeting, but never lose it. Ooh. Hmm. Okay, okay. Let's just hope that the other half of the monster didn't follow them and ruin this entire thing. Let's just live in the moment for now, right? She's very tired. I'm kind of worried for Joichi here. Well, that's a Chad right there. That's a Giga Chad helping them. I bet it does. It's not coming from the baby, is it? Now he's raising. How? Open your eyes. Human eyes. Cut back to the facility. Oh, 10 years ago. Better than nothing, I suppose. Hmm. Hey, they got a ride. That is the. It's so awkward. Friends. Friends. Very vague. Are those the babies that we saw before? The story was about him. It was always about him. Jesus. Stolen car. What the fuck? Bye bye. And now the car belongs to them. That was easily one of the best episodes of the show. Woo! No end credits? Nope. Okay. I want to take this moment to say that I had a massive brain fart towards the end of this episode reaction, where my perception of time and place is most obviously and definitely not where it is. I thought that the whole thing with Juichi and his son towards the end, I don't know why I thought that was in the past when it was clearly in the present, because why would it be in the past? Because the baby wasn't. I don't know. I don't know what happened to me. I don't know what happened to me during the reaction, but just know that I pretty much got the gist of what happened towards the end of this episode, okay? My brain was just not working at the time, so... Yeah, Juichi killed the person who raised the alarm, and then he left with his son and moved to a different place. Just know that the discussion towards about all of that may not reflect exactly to what I am thinking right now, because obviously my mind was not where it is. Also, the spider monster was Jugo's mom, because that would explain why they have the same powers, and of course Hirokos used to be humans. Enjoy the discussion. Kai Ikarashi, who made one of the best episodes of Gridman and Dyna Zenon, who also made episode 6 of Edge Runners. Of course. It all makes sense now. All of the things that I said about, this episode has a Studio Trigger flair to it, maybe because it's being storyboarded, directed by one of the people that is in from Studio Trigger. um, that explains a lot. That explains a lot. Wow. Yeah, man. I've been thinking about it, and I think for me, I will say that this is probably from a direction point of view, this is probably the best directed episode of the show. I don't think it's my favorite episode of the show. There's more emotional or narratively hard-hitting episodes than this, right? Episode 3, for example, where we get the I guess the backstory, the reveal of Kiriko, and then of course the previous episode, which was an emotional gut punch. But this episode, from like a direction point standpoint, it's incredible. I do love this episode a lot, from how it's directed, the way it's storyboarded, some of the more lively feeling to the character motions as well. It's so fluid, and when I say fluid, it's like kind of countering what it actually looks like, because there's plenty of times where it does feel like they're animating it on 3s and not on 2s, right? Where it's more choppier than before. But it's just the way the different frames are done back to back to back, like how it is framed and how it is set in motion. It feels fluid, even though it probably has less frames, if that makes sense. It's definitely the most unique episode in that regard in this show. But yeah, man. I'm just gonna gush about the direction of this episode for just for a bit during the this discussion. But man, wow, that opening segment, just from like the starting of like them in the car immediately, right? We don't know how they got there. We're just in media res, right? We're just there, but just from the cuts between inside of the car, outside of the car, we see how the camera is placed, the virtual camera is placed within the frame, the way how everything is set up and everything. It's so visually pleasing. I love the many different perspective shifts. I love the foreshortenings of a lot of these moments, a lot of these shots as well. How you can definitely see, like, the further they go, the more narrow it gets. It has a lot of punch to it. It almost feels, how do I put this? It's like a manga. It's like a manga. And in that regard, I think they absolutely nailed it. You know, like sometimes in manga, you can definitely, see these more, really, really, over the top stretchiness of the drawings of like the artwork, right? And this episode is no different. Oh man, I just love the way this episode is directed. I love the way it is cut. I think this episode was paced really, really well. It doesn't feel like a mess. It felt actually concise and consistent, even with the change in like different locations, because we went from like inside of the car into this building where Juichi used to be in, and then they fought the Hirokos, and then they go to the other place, and then they meet the baby and all that stuff. It's they go from place to place to place, and then they jump back and forth between present and future from time to time. But it all felt concise. It all felt like it was done in a very sequential manner. And with all that being said, the content within the episode itself, like the story that is in this episode, where do I begin? I'll say that I wasn't expecting that we see Juichi again, but it also brought this question of like, how is the other characters that we met along the way? Like, how are they right now? How have they been? What about the king of the hotels? The girl who almost wants to bang our boy. But like, it does beg the question of like, yeah, how are those people? Because we went from place to place, right? This entire show is this adventure between our two main leads and how they meet these different people from different locations who has different lives and different ways of living. Like, their presence and their interaction with them change who they are, right? For better or for worse. You know, there's the previous um woman who was letting them stay for the night, who unfortunately got killed by the monster that supposedly was her son. But then you also got, you know, these other people who kind of found joy. However, there is a motif surrounding the entire story and their encounters, and that is that a lot of these people end up dying. I already mentioned about the woman who let them stay for the night at the very early stages of the show. Previous episode, we also see um the doctor and the girl who he was trying to save, and how they both died, to the point where um Kiriko talked about like how, why is it that I bring death, right? Why is it that everywhere I go I bring death? Paraphrasing, of course, but that is one of the main topics that the previous episode was talking about, right? In that everywhere they go, danger follows, death follows, right? So now it's also like, after seeing like Juichi and meeting his boy, it's also like, okay, so what's gonna happen to them in the future? Because concerning the boy, we're not going to explore more about that character, more about the boy, because I feel like the boy being the Hiruko's, and him being the one who made all of the freezing death bubbles, I feel like we should probably talk about that more. But it's just the very nature of the show of like, hey, okay, here you go. Here's a mystery. Here's a supernatural element that is completely unexplainable, but the characters themselves cannot explain it, so how can they explain it to you? And that's kind of like how the show has been. It's kind of like us trying to piece the puzzles together, especially when we cut back to Tokyo and all the other characters within the facility, like the children, the student stuff. That is probably the part where we're getting the most info out of this world on like what they are, right? So we can kind of have a guess in how that could be, right? My thoughts on the matter is that Juichi's wife Juichi's wife could be amongst those new friends that the children met at the end of the episode, right? Um and given the nature that now that we know that the Hirokos are human, or used to be, or is it the other way around? Um the possibility that a child born from those children to have such supernatural powers is, at this point, it's not just possible. We are literally with one of those children, right? I stand by when I say that Maru is a child of Tokyo. I am standing by on that theory. But it's like the most obvious not conclusion, but it's like the most obvious, like, oh duh, like all of the hints are there, right, from when he was born and his recollection of his past. But I've talked about that like very extensively throughout this entire series of discussions. But yeah, but now we're seeing different supernatural powers. That's what I'm trying to get at, right? Maru has the ability to touch the hearts of others, but who's to say that these other children's have different abilities as well, right? But it still doesn't explain what's going on within this episode, as in, okay, so we clearly see the Hirokos themselves, right? We clearly saw that giant ass spider and the very potential that it is the one who's doing all of the bubbly things because it is the only thing within the facility, right? Vicinity, I mean. But the boy is doing it, is doing it as well. So it begs the question of, is it actually the spider creature that is doing all of that? Or is it actually the boy from far away? We don't know. I don't know. Is the boy actually the spider? That's kind of unlikely considering we kind of cut the spider in half. But who's to say that the boy has the ability to change into a creature or whatever, right? We don't know. And it's this mystery element that I love about this show where there's a lot of things that are clearly unexplained. I know for a lot of people this may come as a frustration, as in, why are they not explaining this? We need to know what is going on. We need to know, like, why is X, Y is Z. But at the same time, for me, there's a sense of charm and wonder towards the mystery, if that makes sense. Like, I enjoy not knowing things, like leaving things to my imagination. And I also feel like, in terms of the story and the narrative of Heavenly Delusion, this feels more like, hey, you're not ready to learn more about this, okay? Now is not the time. But you are free to think and go buck wild with your imagination, because I feel like that's the point, right? One of the key points of this show, especially in regards to the children, is of course of how they imagine things, right? What was the name of the Kona? Kona is the one who loves to draw, right? It is the very nature of his character to imagine the unimaginable, right? Fish with legs. They've never seen a fish before. How? Why? How? Right? But it's like this beauty within their own imagination and how they kind of view the world as they see it. And I kind of get that while watching some of the episodes of this show, as in, like, I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I can freely imagine what it may imply, right? So to me, that's a plus, but I can totally understand if some people will have a, let's say, a negative feeling towards that approach in storytelling. But we are, of course, like 10 episodes into the show. I'm pretty sure once the show is over, there's still plenty of story to tell. Like, it's not like we just finished the manga entirely. I know that the manga is still circulating, the manga is still going, so the story continues on. So it's a matter of, like, okay, how they're going to end this season. When are they going to end the season? At what point, right? Is it going to be conclusive? Is it going to be left hanging, or is it going to conclude on its own and it will feel like, okay, one season is enough? There may be some things that are left unexplained, but I can live without knowing them and just leave it into my own imagination. I'm saying this because I am going to be binging the entirety of the show, like the rest of the show. Like, I'm currently watching episode 10, obviously, but after this, I'm going to be watching 11, 12, and then 13, and which is why I just want to talk to you about this. Talk to you about, like, my feelings, because I am feeling that level of anticipation of, like, okay, how is this show going to end? So, speaking of endings, that's going to be the end of the discussion. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you all so much for watching my reaction, my discussion, my review. If you do enjoy this entire video, hit the like and subscribe. Share the video if you haven't. And I will see you all next time. Take care. Have a nice day. Peace.